The UK, once a global economic powerhouse, is grappling with stagnation, while its neighbour, Ireland, is soaring to new heights, boasting one of the world's highest GDP per capita. How did this happen? From Brexit's fallout to Ireland's strategic positioning as a tax haven for global giants, we'll uncover the dynamics driving this contrast. This isn't just about numbers, it's a story of policy, trade and opportunity. We'll break it down into 10 key points, backed by data and insights, to show how Ireland's gain is tied to the UK's struggles. Hit that subscribe button, grab a coffee, and let's dive into why the UK's downfall is making Ireland insanely rich. Brexit's economic impact on the UK. The UK's 2016 decision to leave the EU has been a seismic shock to its economy. The Centre for European Reform estimates Brexit cost the UK £40 billion annually in public finances by 2022, slashing GDP by 5.5% and investment by 11%. Trade barriers with the EU, which accounts for nearly half of UK trade, have hit exporters hard, with a Bank of England study noting a 25% drop in business investment from 2020 to 21. Uncertainty over the Northern Ireland Protocol and restricted access to EU markets have stifled growth. Meanwhile, Ireland, an EU member, has capitalised on this. Companies once based in the UK, particularly in finance, have relocated to Dublin to maintain EU market access. Brexit's disruption has slowed UK productivity, with stagnant real incomes and rising debt, as noted in recent analyses. This economic divergence has allowed Ireland to attract foreign direct investment, boosting its wealth, while the UK struggles to regain footing. Ireland's tax haven strategy. Ireland's low corporate tax rate of 12.5%, half the UK's, has made it a magnet for multinational corporations, particularly US tech and pharmaceutical giants like Apple and Google. This strategy, often criticised as a tax haven, channels massive profits through Ireland, inflating its GDP. The EU Tax Observatory estimates €140 billion in multinational profits are diverted annually to Ireland, equating to half its real economy. This tax advantage, coupled with lenient rules allowing effective tax rates as low as 4%, draws firms away from higher tax jurisdictions like the UK. For instance, Ireland's aircraft leasing sector, fueled by tax allowances, generates $110 billion yearly, while the UK grapples with post-Brexit tax hikes to fund public services. Ireland's surplus from corporate taxes, 43% from just 3 US firms, funds infrastructure and a sovereign wealth fund. This tax-driven wealth surge highlights how Ireland's policies exploit the UK's economic challenges. Foreign direct investment surge in Ireland. Ireland ranks first globally for high-value FDI per the Index of Economic Freedom, driven by its EU access and low taxes. Multinationals, especially US firms, 80% of Ireland's FDI, contribute €28.3 billion annually to the Irish exchequer through taxes, wages, and capital spending. The OECD notes these firms account for 80% of Ireland's manufacturing value add and employ 25% of its private sector. Post-Brexit, many London-based financial institutions moved operations to Dublin to retain EU market access, boosting Ireland's financial sector. In contrast, the UK's FDI has slumped, with business investment down 9.1% since pre-pandemic levels, partly due to Brexit uncertainty. Ireland's ability to attract tech, life sciences and financial firms has fueled GDP growth, 26.3% in 2015 alone, while the UK's economic stagnation limits its FDI appeal. This shift underscores how Ireland capitalises on the UK's economic woes. Ireland's economic recovery, post-2008. Ireland's recovery from the 2008 financial crisis was remarkable. Unlike the UK's ongoing struggles, After a severe recession, with GDP shrinking 12% by 2007, Ireland implemented an EU-IMF adjustment programme. By 2015, GDP growth hit over 5%, driven by exports and FDI. The Economic and Social Research Institute noted in 2011 that Ireland's economy had bottomed out, and by 2016, GDP surged. Meanwhile, the UK faced a 20.4% GDP drop in Q2 of 2020 due to pandemic lockdowns, with recovery hampered by Brexit and inflation. Ireland's focus on high-tech and financial services, coupled with budget surpluses, enabled infrastructure investment. Despite constraints, the UK, however, battles persistent inflation and low productivity, as per the Office for Budget Responsibility. Ireland's agile recovery and strategic policies have positioned it to outpace the UK, leveraging global opportunities while the UK lags. UK's wealth inequality exacerbates decline. The UK's wealth inequality, among the highest in developed nations, worsens its economic decline, indirectly benefiting Ireland. The Equality Trust reports the top 10% in the UK hold 43% of wealth, while the bottom 50% own just 9%. In 2022, the richest fifth saw a 7.8% income rise, but the poorest 14 million faced a 7.5% drop. This disparity, fueled by stagnant wages and austerity, limits consumer spending and economic growth. Conversely, Ireland's economic model, while not immune to inequality, Gini coefficient of 30.4, benefits from multinational-driven wealth. Corporate tax windfalls and FDI create jobs and infrastructure, raising living standards. The UK's skewed wealth distribution, combined with Brexit's economic drag, pushes firms and talent to Ireland, where policies foster growth. By 2023, the UK's richest 50 families held more wealth than half the population, highlighting a structural issue Ireland exploits. Ireland's EU membership advantage. Ireland's EU membership is a key driver of its wealth surge, contrasting with the UK's post-Brexit isolation. As an EU member, Ireland offers multinationals seamless access to a 300 million person market. Unlike the UK, which faces trade barriers post-2020, Dublin has become a hub for firms relocating from London to maintain EU operations, especially in finance and tech. The Financial Times noted in 2016 that some UK-based institutions eyed Dublin post-Brexit. Ireland's alignment with EU regulations and its Eurozone status enhance its appeal, while the UK grapples with regulatory divergence and disputes like the Northern Ireland Protocol. Ireland's GDP per capita ranks second globally as per IMF, fueled by EU-enabled trade and investment. Meanwhile, the UK's trade, accounting for a third of its income, suffers from Brexit-related costs, as per The Guardian. Ireland's EU advantage amplifies its wealth as the UK's economic challenges persist. UK's productivity and workforce crisis. The UK's productivity stagnation and workforce crisis are key factors in its economic decline, indirectly boosting Ireland. The Guardian reports UK business investment fell 9.1% since pre-pandemic levels, with Brexit reducing investment by 25%. Low productivity, stagnant real incomes, and a post-Brexit labour shortage, exacerbated by restricted EU migration, have created a workforce crisis. The Office for Budget Responsibility forecasts a slight employment rate decline to 60.2%. Ireland, however, benefits from a growing population and EU labour mobility, supporting its booming sectors like tech and finance. The OECD notes multinationals employ 25% of Ireland's private sector, driving productivity. As the UK struggles with inflation and skill shortages, Ireland attracts talent and firms, leveraging its open economy. This contrast highlights how the UK's internal challenges fuel Ireland's economic ascent. Ireland's corporate tax windfall, driven by its tax haven status, has created immense wealth, contrasting with the UK's fiscal struggles. Reuters reports Ireland's budget surplus reached 2.9% of national income in 2024, largely from corporate taxes, with 43% from 3 US firms alone. A $13 billion Apple-backed tax ruling in 2024 further swelled Ireland's coffers, as noted by the Financial Times. This surplus funds infrastructure, tax cuts, and a sovereign wealth fund, unlike the UK, where Brexit and inflation necessitated tax hikes, per the Centre for European Reform. Ireland's low tax rate and lax rules attract multinationals, diverting profits from higher tax nations like the UK. The EU Tax Observatory estimates $140 billion in profits are routed through Ireland yearly. As the UK faces deficits and rising debt, Ireland's tax-driven prosperity highlights how it capitalizes on the UK's economic downturn. UK's post-pandemic economic struggles. The UK's post-pandemic recovery has been sluggish, amplifying Ireland's relative wealth. A record 20.4% GDP drop in Q2 of 2020 per Investopedia was worsened by prolonged lockdowns and Brexit's trade disruptions. The Bank of England warns of persistent inflation and a deeper recession than other major economies, driven by energy crises and Ukraine war impacts. The Guardian notes the UK's reliance on imported food, 50%, and trade, a third of income, makes it vulnerable to global shocks. Ireland, however, rebounded swiftly, with 26.3% GDP growth in 2015 and continued strength per CSO figures. Its export-driven economy, fueled by multinationals, and Eurozone stability shield it from shock. While the UK grapples with austerity-weakened services and labour shortages, Ireland's surplus and FDI-driven growth enable investment, highlighting how the UK's struggles create opportunities for Ireland's wealth surge. Ireland's infrastructure and growth challenges. Ireland's rapid growth brings problems of success, like housing shortages and strained infrastructure, yet it still outpaces the UK. Reuters notes Ireland's post-2015 boom, with over 5% GDP growth, strained transport and housing, with Dublin facing rising rents and congestion. EU fiscal rules limit Ireland's infrastructure spending to 2.5% of GDP, below the 4% needed per IBEC. Still, Ireland's budget surplus allows gradual investment, unlike the UK, where austerity and Brexit curb public spending. The Office for Budget Responsibility highlights the UK's weak recovery, with declining employment and investment. Ireland's challenges are growth-related, manageable with tax windfalls, while the UK's are structural, tied to inequality and policy missteps. Ireland's ability to navigate these issues, while attracting FDI and talent, underscores how it thrives amid the UK's economic decline. That's a wrap on our exploration of why the UK's economic downfall is fueling Ireland's wealth surge, from Brexit's trade disruptions to Ireland's tax haven allure. We've seen how Ireland capitalizes on the UK's struggles through FDI, EU membership, and corporate tax windfalls. While the UK battles inequality, low productivity, and post-pandemic woes, Ireland's strategic policies have made it a global economic star. But this story isn't just about numbers, it's about how nations navigate challenges and seize opportunities. What do you think about this economic shift? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and let's keep the conversation going. If you found this video insightful, give it a thumbs up, share it with friends, and subscribe for more deep dives into global trends. Hit the bell icon so you never miss an update. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video for another fascinating look at the world's economic landscape. Stay curious.